Happy Fight Procrastination Day, and welcome to year 20, week 1 of the Sandlot Fantasy Football League. With me, I've got Nick. What's going on, Nick?
Hey, guys.
Got Hillers. What's up, Hillers?
Howdy.
I'm not sure which one of you is a bigger fan of Fight Procrastination Day. I think Hillers was a minus 135 on DraftKings, though. Nick, you were plus 120.
Oh, yeah, 100%. 100%. I am not a fight procrastinator. I am a fight encourager. And fight, what is the opposite of procrastinating?
Planning?
Encourager?
Is it concrastinating?
Procrastinate. Well, we got pro, so yeah, I guess I'd be con. Yeah. That's how words work.
That's English, right?
Yeah.
Hillers?
I mean, I guess. What were the numbers? What? Why am I minus 135 and something?
It's a gambling thing. It's odds, meaning like if I bet, I'd have to bet 135 to win 100 back.
Oh.
So it's meaning
No.
like you're
No,
a
there's-
big favorite.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'll put off a fight forever. I prefer sabotage.
No. It's not procrastinating a fight. It's fight against procrastination day.
Oh, fight against procrastination.
Oh, boy, you're never. That's a bad bet.
Yeah,
At
no.
a thousand-
Yeah, that's
at
what
a
I'm saying.
thousand- At 1,000 to 0, procrastination usually wins. I wouldn't.
I know. I lived with you in college. I
Yeah.
saw it.
Oh, yeah, I changed my bet too. Yeah, I thought it was Hillers, I'm with you. I thought you were like fighting. You were fighting, but you're going to procrastinate fighting.
Yeah. This is like the Bender fight Futurama episode. Yeah, a bet of $0 yields $1,000 if he wins. Still, very few takers.
Sorry, just changing some levels here. Bear with us. So here we are, week 1. Procrastinated the setting of the levels, as we can see in celebration of Fight Procrastination Day.
While you're checking the levels, are you checking the recording as well?
Yeah, we are recording. Confirmed. Thank you for checking, though. Always good. Got the post-draft podcast this week. We're going to go over draft weekend. We're going to do a team overview for everybody, and we're going to do some playoff predictions. So let's start with the draft overview, guys. What'd you guys think of draft weekend? Not necessarily the draft itself, but any highlights that you're going to remember those moments for the rest of your life? Anything like that?
I'd say there was a lot of moments I'm not likely to remember.
You don't want to remember.
I think what we'll remember is you yelling at Grimes at 6 o'clock in the morning. Will you go to fucking bed?
I felt bad later for yelling at Grimes, but in another way, I'd just been kicked out of a bed and was covered in bug bites, and it was like 4 a.m. He's like stomping around. I mean,
Yeah, he did not sleep much, I think. He had he could have had like 6 hours of sleep total in 3 nights, I think. Like he was.
Yeah.
And he looked like it by the end of the weekend too.
How about you, Meryl?
No, I thought it was a great weekend. We're putting together some bit of a mini documentary for the weekend, so the work has started on that. So it could be a while. Video editing takes forever, apparently. But no, it was great. Enjoyed playing golf with the boys. That was always fun. That's always fun. The house was, candidly, wasn't a huge fan of the house.
No.
I thought it was fine.
Space. A lot of empty space in that house.
Yeah, it served its purpose. It was fine. Did the job. But, compared to some other places we've stayed, I think it was, I think I'd rank it third.
It's not even close. Yeah. Like, I didn't like that first house that we stayed in. Like, that's clearly number 2 now. Like, I did not.
Yeah.
Care. What's funny is that house, the house that we rented, very much the yurt experience that you wanted.
Just a wide open space.
It was one big yurt with like a couple little rooms off to the side, but it was just one big open space.
The word squarest yurt.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out a place to do like the interviews for the documentary, and we couldn't find anywhere because it was just one big room. We were like, well, I guess we'd go in a bedroom and do it. That's not very,
Right.
But yeah, it was okay. I mean, the outdoor space was nice, which is
Outdoor
always
space was
good.
great. I loved like the deck, the room that we were sitting where we did the interviews, the whole outdoor area, the dock, the water, like everything outside was fantastic.
How many people went in the lake?
At least I think it was just Roscoe and I.
Okay, just the two of you. Yeah. All right. Well, cool. Yeah, no, it was great. Thanks for putting it together, as always, Nick. And everybody, if you have not paid Nick, pay the man.
Yep. The spreadsheet is up to date, so check it. Even if you think you paid, check to make sure that you paid. I'm zeroing
And
out every
Andy.
ones that pay.
Pay the league dues too if you haven't paid those.
Yep.
Pay those too, especially me. All right. What about the draft itself? Just kind of high level thoughts on how it went. Anything new that you thought was different? Anything stick out?
Well,
It was weird.
yeah.
I thought, okay, let me rephrase this. Let me be more articulate. I think that this is like one of the first years where we all walked into it, and it was just maybe it was. I don't know if it was the quality of players that were available. I don't know if it was the money that we had. Maybe it's just the experience after doing this for 10 plus years of doing an auction. But like the money that was spent on players was ridiculously high, and I think that it just definitely set. It was just weird. Like this draft was exactly what I thought was going to happen. I had no idea what was going to happen, and I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea what was going to happen, and it lived up to the expectation of not knowing what to expect.
Yeah, it was odd to me also, and maybe this is getting in a little bit into the agenda before we meant to, but it's crazy how much we're still talking about rules and fighting about it and trying to do new stuff with the league after 20 years of doing this. You know, you'd think that people would have sort of settled into this is agreeable sort of way about it, but have we not. You know, it's like every year there's like more changes gone through, and it's odd to see, you know, that there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it either. It's not like a general trend towards making it more or less standard. It's back and forth. It's all over the map. It's hard to parse out really what the.
It's almost like people are making changes just to make changes.
I mean, or that they just want to try something different. My personal theory is that people like changes when they lose and then they get a scapegoat and then Nick, they try to make rule changes.
Nick, what change do you think someone tried to make just to make a change?
I think every change that we try to make is a change just to make a change. I think the idea, yes, you've been trying to get kickers to move. Like, okay, the quarterback scoring is a prime example of a change just to make a change.
Did you not hear anyone talk about the case behind why we should change quarterback scoring? You didn't listen to any of that? You just thought, I'd like to change quarterback scoring because I like to make changes.
That's it's people making I think it's people making change. Like, you can want to make all the changes and you can back up why you want to make those changes, but there's no reason to make a change unless you want to just make a change. Like, we don't have. I guess I just feel that sometimes just because you can think that you want to change something doesn't mean it's necessarily right to do it. Like, you just want to then it's fine. Let's start a different league with different set of rules. You don't need to make changes to this every year just because something happens. Like,
so are you saying we should?
I'm saying that the whole idea about the quarterback scoring was you brought up the idea of quarterback scoring because of you wanted to change the value of change the perceived value of the quarterback position.
Exactly.
And instead of us doing any kind of research, instead of us doing any kind of testing, instead of us like, okay, hey, let's just do a test run and see how this works. It's immediately, okay, let's put this to a vote and pass it. Like, there was no kind of fleshing out exactly what was going to happen. What is the expected outcome? Like,
what kind of testing? What kind of testing would we have done?
You didn't build a model. You didn't build a mathematical model.
We can start up a dummy league where we run these leagues, where we run this kind of thing. Like, I'm just trying
to set up a dummy league.
We've tried to set up second leagues in the past, and we just can't. You can't get anybody to stick to them. I think is the problem. I mean, I think we make. I mean, I'm gonna kind of be on the other side. Is I think we make changes constantly to make the league better, to make the league more fun. To, you know, we went from. I mean, if we didn't make any changes, we'd still be doing a 3-keeper snake draft like we did back in the day with no cost to those keepers. I think the changes that got us to where we are today have, for the most part, been really good and have helped the league become a lot more fun.
For the most part, I totally agree. And that includes like the auction. That includes the PPR, switching to PPR, like. Which I still think in hindsight, like, I don't think I would have switched to PPR just because I think that was a drastic change. But again, like one of those kinds of things where it's like changes just to make changes. It's like, oh, we want to do this. Like, okay, cool. Like,
that's not. But again, it's not a change just to make a change. I mean, people had reasons behind it. They wanted to increase the value of wide receivers, which PPR does, because the emphasis on running backs and non-PPR is so huge and in a 12-team league, running backs are harder and harder to find. And, when you make wide receivers and running backs valuable, then, people can change their strategy. There's more options on how they can build their team. And it just – also there's more points scored, which is just more fun. It's just so it's not for change's sake. Again, that's not – there was reasoning behind it, and it was explained at the time.
But again, you can make all the changes you want, but sometimes people are like, "Oh, I want to make this change, and here's my reasoning why." But I just want to make a change. Like both things can be true. People can want to make a change and back up the reasons for it, but it's just because they want to change it. They want to change the status quo.
I've never heard anyone say that in the league when they're proposing a rule. Like I don't. I mean, that's
no one's going to say.
No reason to belabor it for a half an hour, guys. This podcast is going to be long enough.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm just saying it's crazy that there's still a change in evolution and people wanted to try different things, which maybe we should see it as a good sign of engagement.
Sure. Yeah, and honestly, we didn't make many. I mean, the kickers was the big one that we had. Kickers are gone.
Yep.
Well, not yet. We'll see. I still got next year to.
Well, they're gone for next year.
Down to defense.
They're gone for next year for sure, but people can try to bring them back, I guess, if they want to.
We'll do an appeal. There's no problem with the last-minute appeal.
So kickers will be replaced by another flex position, which is I think awesome.
Which
cool.
should allow kickers, I think. But that's for next year.
There was a proposal for a 2-quarterback league, which I'll just say, like, I would love that. I would love to have a 2-quarterback league. But I think this goes back to what you were saying, Nick. I mean, PPR shifted the value of players drastically. It was a pretty big shift. I mean, almost as big as shifting from snake to auction. I mean, those were like the 2 biggest changes we probably made. 2-quarterback league would be
or a super flex
crazy. Like, I mean, I'm in a 2-quarterback auction league, and Josh Allen goes for $55. Like, other quarterbacks are going for $45. The top quarterbacks are going for $40, $50. They're like the most expensive players. I mean, that would be a drastic.
That's
change
probably why that may never it may never come for that reason, because quarterback values as set are real low on top tier quarterbacks, and everybody that doesn't have one would be real upset to find the quarterbacks at the prices they are.
Yeah,
they're not going to let you hang on to Jalen Hurts at that cost. Under any circumstances, right?
Yeah,
so.
We'd almost need to do like a full reset. I mean, I'm with Roscoe. Like, I think Superflex is probably the most fun. Like, as far as just the way it works, and it brings value to more positions, which I like. I mean, it makes quarterback a thing you have to worry about, which it is one of, if not the most important.
Maybe one day we can vote on full reset, the explosion. We talk about it sometimes.
We can talk about it. I mean, it's not going to happen, but
what we could do is, if we were to do that, I'm just spitballing here. Again, we got to get to the draft stuff, but we could just, if we decide to go the super flex route, we could just say, okay, everyone throws back their quarterbacks. Like, you're throwing back your quarterbacks, and now the question is, hey, if you want to keep that, $30 player that has a great value, like, that's fine, but that's $30 you're not going to spend on a quarterback. Like, that's up to you then to decide what you're going to spend.
Maybe we're answering our own question about why we make changes, is because then we can have conversations like this where we can speculate about crazy rule changes.
Maybe.
But it's also because Superflex is fun. I mean, it is a fun format, and Hillers. I mean, as somebody who's looking for quarterbacks to be more valuable, I mean, that is the ultimate way to do it.
I would love it. I would take a Superflex also, but it's the same problems.
That's what we're talking about. Superflex.
Yeah. Same problems.
So yeah, I'm with you, Roscoe. I think it'd be cool. It's just getting there is difficult, and we need to figure out a way to do it if it's going to happen. Well, I just don't see it happening. But yeah, hey, no more kickers, so that's cool.
I mean, for now.
Speaking of procrastination day, some votes. Somebody put here in the notes that there were votes that took place with only one supporter.
That's true.
What was
I was one, you were one, and I was like, boy, we should maybe plan this better.
I mean,
we've had drafts where I came out of rules yelling and going, boy, that was real efficient and well conducted rules yelling. I didn't feel like that this year. I think it was pretty bad, actually.
There were
kind
of
chaotic, kind of a lot of yelling. Yeah,
sure.
We got to find a way to get back on track. It was funny to see one hand up and then just crickets, though.
Yep. All right, you guys want to get in some overviews? You got anything else you want to say about the draft?
Thanks for coming.
We'll cover it.
It's a lot to get there, and it's nice to have people invested. Thanks a lot, everybody, for coming.
I really hope. You know what else I'll say? And Nick, I think I was talking to Des about this. And I think it's because you said it to him like on the last day, but basically it's like I think you said I feel like I was there for about 18 hours too long, and I almost think Friday to Sunday is probably better. I think getting there Thursday, it's a lot.
I've often thought that.
I think
it is.
Yeah. So I don't know. I might be a Friday guy next year, and we'll see.
Yeah.
Because
we'll see.
It's hard when you want to play golf Friday morning because you gotta if you're gonna do that, you gotta wake up at like 5 a.m. to get there, and it's a whole thing. But I'd almost rather do that than do the 3 nights, and it's cheaper. So. All right. Let's talk. Actually, before we get into the overview, there were some trades. There's some news in the league. There's been some trades. The market is hot stove right now. I don't understand most of the trades that have happened, but we don't really know when trades happen. Obviously, everybody has an opinion, and nobody really knows how a trade is going to work out. But there were a few. I mean, the one happened at the draft, which was before the draft, which was Khalil Herbert for Romeo Doubs, which was a surprise to a lot of people, I think. Seems, one-sided, but again, nobody knows.
True.
6 weeks from now, we could be saying, "Holy crap, Romeo Doubs is the top 10
Romeo
receiver."
Doubs,
yeah. Like
Christian Watson isn't a thing, and Romeo Doubs is crushing the league.
Yeah,
it's totally possible. I mean, and people definitely have guys that they like that aren't necessarily reflected in what you see in the internet echo box.
Did you want to elaborate on that one at all, Nick? Or I know you're just a Doubs guy.
I am a Doubs guy. That was more of I've definitely had a couple of drinks, sat down to Roscoe. Roscoe and I started talking, and we were looking at each other's roster. He was like, "I want Herbert." I was like, "Well, I can't keep Herbert." I was like, "But I want Doubs." And he's like, "Send it over." I was like, "Done."
So I'll take any wide receiver just hanging
in
around.
hindsight. No, I did want Doubs. Like I was high. Like I am high on Doubs, and I think I was just looking at it as, I fell into Roscoe's sleeveless charms.
Never a good idea. That's a high road to regret right there.
Yeah, we'll get into my thoughts on that when we get to your team a little more, Nick.
He's the Pat McAfee of our league.
Yeah, he is, for sure. The other one that happened shortly after the draft, or I guess a few days ago, was Keenan Allen and Jerick McKinnon for Christian Watson and Tank Bigsby. Any thoughts on this one, Nick Hillers?
I think that Keenan Allen is the only part of that trade that's worth caring about, and so good for Andy for snagging that for a bunch of what I think is going to end up being forgettable players by the end of the season. I don't see anybody else in this trade making waves enough to be even worth talking about. Like Watson's fine, and I like the Packers, but I think he's going to fit right nicely into that big old chunk of wide receiver twos that get traded around all season, because everybody eventually kind of needs them, and there's a bunch of them going around that are all sort of the same.
Those like $15 wide receivers.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Everybody has at least one of them, and sometimes, but we all need them at some point, and they get traded around more than any other position in the league. Is wide receiver 2 or 3 is the most tradable position for sure.
Dez went into the draft. I'm getting wide receivers this year. I'm doing it, and so he goes in and he invests in wide receivers and 3 days later, he trades him away. He can't help himself.
That's I agree. Like I think that was my write up when I was looking over the notes. Is that he had a pretty good draft. He walked away with some pretty good players, and now I'm looking at his roster. It's like well now you're back to questionable wide receivers.
Never mind. It's the Ducks team again.
It's like I mean, again, I think Bigsby might have some value this year. I don't know how much they love Etienne down there in Jacksonville, and Watson.
Could be good.
Could be good. The number 1 receiver on the Packers, I think. Maybe it's Doubs. I don't know. Could be good. But we know Keenan Allen's, when he's healthy, he's a stud. I mean, absolute PPR stud.
It's like top 10 potential, and you want to look for the ceiling, I think.
Yeah. So I didn't get it, but, again, who cares what I think, right? So,
right.
And then there was thanks, Hillers. Then there was the Jackson Smith and Jigba and Samaje Perine for Hollywood Brown and Alexander Madison. That was I think Larf and Andy, right? That did that one. Larf getting Hollywood and Alexander Madison. This one again, I feel like I'm taking crazy pills when I look at these trades. Honestly, it's hard for me to get behind these. Like, and I don't. But
this one's kind of more level. Like this, to me, it seems like sort of. Sure, fine. What's the difference? But I will say I've never felt further removed from understanding the values that some people have on players or what players are hot or what people want. You know, I'm feeling real far from the trade market right now with all this stuff going on. I'm like, why? Every time I look at a trade has been completed, I look it up, I go, why? That's been my overwhelming reaction. I mean, why did that happen? I don't know. Who wanted what here?
I mean, but ultimately, all that trade is just a swap of like draft move. I mean, I guess Andy did give up his number one running back for a number X
for an
unknown wide receiver,
like a non-keepable, like those players are not keepable. The ones he got, like I don't.
You're right.
Jackson Smith.
I mean, he's
JSN.
Isn't he $21 like right now? I mean, how many receivers went for more than that this year? And he's got two receivers. I'm a huge Jackson Smith and Jigma fan. Like I wanted him, in the draft this year like crazy, but like he's at like $21 already, 24 to keep at a minimum, and he's hurt and he's behind two other receivers. Like he's not. Is he going to pass DK Metcalf on the depth chart on this team?
I doubt it.
No.
I mean, I think what's interesting about this year is that people are buying into the preseason hype before making these trades. In previous years, I think like people were much more reticent to make a deal before the season had started. Once the draft had gone through, everybody sort of bought into the hype to the degree that they were going to there and stuck with it. But maybe people didn't do a lot of prep this year, or they bought into hype a little bit later in the cycle or something. But it's interesting to see this many pieces that are speculative being traded before even the week one scores are in the books.
Yeah.
Well, I think it just played. I think it just played into the trade and into the market and into the draft. Right? Is that people didn't know what to expect. They have their blades I think we covered this already. Is that people just didn't know what to expect. They couldn't necessarily maybe Andy couldn't afford JSN in the draft, but he can trade for him. And he sent the offer to get the guy that he wanted. So that's kind of part of it too, is that now I'm not worried about my salary. So now I can go, hell, I can talk to Pritchard and be like, give me Bijan. Like, here's what I want for Bijan, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all, the draft money's gone. So now
it changes. Post-draft trades are different value than pre-draft trades for sure.
Yep. All right. Let's do some, let's get into some team overviews here. Got our draft board up. Look at this. This is crazy.
How about that?
We're going to talk about the dad dicks first. I have them somewhere. Right here. Dad dicks came in, keeping Justin Fields, James Cook, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, and TJ Hawkinson. Some solid keepers. Big picks were Dalvin Cook for 22, Zay Flowers 17, Terry McLaurin, 21. David Montgomery, 19. Dameon Pierce, 25. I'm glad somebody got to pick a lot of players at the draft because that seemed fun.
He had to throw some money around too.
He did. He was, he was picking all values there. Nick, what'd you think of Ground's draft?
I think it's a good team. I think that he had a good team, but it's not a great draft. Like, I think because he walked in with the pieces that he needed. He already walked in with some great pieces. I just don't know if his draft really filled out that team enough to kind of do what he needed to do. I don't know what his strategy was in the long run, but there's just no player on this that he drafted that I'm like, ooh, that's the guy that I want. And at no price did he get a price where I'm like, ooh, that was a great deal. So I'm kind of meh on his draft, but I think that it complements his team, his strong score already. So I think he still has a good team. I just don't think his Saturday he walked out of the team. The act of the process of the draft was particularly impressive.
Ehlers?
This for me, actually, I had a different take on it entirely. This was a contender for best draft for me because it started out with reasonably solid keepers, and it looks like he went in with the strategy of get some guys with a reasonably high floor on their scores and try to pick up values and distribute the money over a bunch of different places so that if a couple of these guys exceed their expectations, he's suddenly looking at a much scarier team. And I really like that strategy. Rather than spending, $50 on one player and $2 on another, you can see he's got 22, 17, 21, 19, 25. And all those guys there's a reasonable expectation that they could do quite well. They were just not the sexy picks, not the ones that were sort of being hyped pre-draft. But there's definitely potential there. And even if there's not, he's doing what he needs to do, which is getting his team to be a little bit more robust, filling in those slots. So I it's not a strategy that I go for a lot, but I understand what he's going for, and I think that it has a good chance of working out and improving his team, which is what you want to do out of the draft. So I really liked it. Thought it was a good draft.
Yeah, this is one of the deepest teams in the league. If you look down that bench, there's very few players I'm not comfortable starting week one even. So he came in with stars: Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Fields. Like, these are big players who can put up big numbers. And he just kind of filled in the gaps. If he's weak anywhere, I think it's running back. James Cook, he's got the Cook brothers at running back, and Dalvin Cook and Dalvin James Cook. And then he's got Dameon Pierce down there on the bench too. So again, it's a solid running back core. It's not, when you compare it to the other ones.
Flashy.
Yeah, when you compare it to the other ones in the league, it's a little on the weaker side. So I think he knows that, but his wide receiving core is among the strongest. So that kind of balances out, and I think.
And he also has Justin Fields as a non-running back.
Right, and Fields can, Fields will put up 30, 40 points in a week like it's nothing. So I thought it was among the best drafts. He hung in that like $15 to $25 range with his picks and just picked off values in there, and that was kind of his strategy, and I think it worked out for him. All right. Move on to the Ducks here. Ducks came in keeping Joe Burrow, Travis Etienne, Tony Pollard, and is it Etienne? I feel weird saying that. Tony Pollard.
I think you need to be more Cajun than you are before you'll understand.
I'll work on it. Darren Waller, and then his big picks were Calvin Ridley for 30, DJ Moore for 27, and Keenan Allen for 32. So that's 80,
immediately traded Keenan Allen.
$89 in wide receivers he spent or something like that. I don't know if my math's right. Probably not. But
probably not.
No, I think I nailed it. And also Michael Pittman at 7, which hey, all right.
At 7, that's good value if it works. Yeah,
it's fine.
Yeah.
So, came in with a goal of getting wide receivers, and he did that. And,
boy, did he!
Hillers,
let no man say
Nick, Nick, what are your thoughts on Dez's draft?
I thought Dez's draft was great. I thought that he addressed the needs that he needed, and I thought that he had a really he left the draft with a good stable of wide receivers, and I like to see him when he left the draft.
Hillers?
Well, he clearly went in looking to say, to whatever extent those tier 2 guys, because obviously the top 15 receivers were gone before the draft started, and he went in there saying, whoever's at the top of what's left, I'm taking that. Which makes it a little puzzling that then he went and sold immediately his highest purchase. But you can see, looking at his roster in total, that he's trying to make moves and get after some high upside rookies or potential breakout guys. And when you're in that position, being such a crap team, that's what you should do. So he's trying to do the right things and should be commended for that in a way. Do I think it's going to be enough to have him be a successful team this year? Not really, but he's got the right idea.
Yeah, I think this team, there's a lot of fence sitting here. Obviously Burrow's a stud, but I think Pollard. That's what I meant to say. Pollard could be Tony Pollard. If you look at his games when Zeke wasn't around last year, he was like the best player in fantasy football.
Yeah. And for $23, that's his untradeable.
Right. If he can keep that up, that he can carry this team to some victories, and this team can be a contender. The wide receiving core a little weak again. Getting rid of Keenan Allen didn't help him much. But again, also he's got Calvin Ridley sitting there.
Do you trust Calvin Ridley?
No, but the guy's amazing, and
potentially
you got to pick who's there, right? And you're looking. You don't play for second, And so he's taking a lottery pick here, and he's saying, "I'm taking my shot." He's taking a shot with Calvin Ridley, and also having a running back and the wide receiver on the same team, not always great. I mean, not in my opinion anyway. But if Calvin really works out and is the stud that he was a few years ago, then he can carry that wide receiving core maybe and turn into a nice wide receiver one for him. I think he drafted well. The Keenan Allen trade I think it hurt his team, but he's got himself. He clawed himself back into relevance, I think.
Yeah. We'll see. This will be an interesting season to define him as an owner. You can't trade your owner. That's the one thing you can't trade. So we'll see if he just can't help hurting himself or if he gets himself into that mid-tier of owners this year.
That's right. Watson, Assassins are our next team. They came in keeping Watson, Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Swift for DeAndre Swift, T. Higgins, and Cooper Kupp.
That noise.
Cooper Kupp has went to see a specialist about his hamstring, so that's a Cooper Kupp's hamstrings hurt noise.
Van Jefferson flying off waivers everywhere.
Never good to see a specialist. Like it's never like, oh, let's see a specialist. It was awesome. It's great news. Big picks were Jahmyr Gibbs for 49, Kyle Pitts for 17, Jerry Jeudy for 24, and Jamal Williams for 6. I didn't love the draft. There's definitely some upside here. God, that Cooper Kupp injury really hurts this team. Because the wide receiver core of Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and Jerry Jeudy. Also, Jerry Judy's hurt, by the way, too. So, a healthy wide receiving core of Cooper Kupp, T. Higgins, and Jerry Jeudy, pretty scary, pretty good. But a wide receiver core of T. Higgins and Josh Downs, Jayden Reed, and Cortland Sutton, not as scary. So, didn't love the draft. Recently, he just traded DeAndre Swift for Quentin Johnston. Woo, I guess. Yay for that.
That'll fix it.
He did that?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
That happened just before we got on the podcast here. So that's breaking news.
Interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, I think it's a big meh. But I think Swift. I think Swift has the higher upside, but I also hate Swift. So anyway,
I mean, Swift is Swift has more points tomorrow. His points this week than Quentin Johnson does, and Watson needs points this week.
Yeah.
All right. Going into week 1, who would you rather have starting week 1? DeAndre Swift or Quentin Johnson?
Who is he starting week 1?
I mean,
I don't know. I don't get to face teams like this. I have to face
Jahmyr Gibbs.
Teams.
I mean, he's starting.
Who's this?
Jahmyr Gibbs and Rashad Penny.
Oof.
I guess Jamal Williams with Kamara out, maybe. But that's tough. It's tough. So he's got to hope for Jeudy and Kupp to get healthy and that wide receiver do some.
I mean, already this team is one of those Christmas trees that looks okay from the front, and then you look at the back and go, "Oh no, it's a disaster back there." And I feel like things are already falling apart, and the one stick that the foundation of this team is built on is about to get kicked out every day, and I'll probably be feeling like that every week the entire season.
I mean, even let's rewind the clock then and go back 2 weeks, or a week and a half to the draft. Like, what do we think of the draft? I don't think that he had a strong draft. I didn't like this team at 6:00 on Saturday, and the injuries aren't helping it.
Yeah.
Because we walked into the draft knowing Jerry Jeudy was hurt, and then he also got Cortland Sutton, and nothing else really jumps out at you as anyone that I'm like, ooh, I'm excited that you won that guy.
Yeah. With his keepers, I would not have walked into this draft saying, I'm going to buy me a $50 rookie running back. But that's
I can just imagine what Andy was feeling when Kyle Pitts went for $17. I know Andy probably hates Kyle Pitts, but it takes 2 people to get to that price. I get that. But that seems.
I mean, Gibbs and Pitts, they have upside. You can't say they don't. But yeah.
I feel like the upside for Gibbs is capped a little bit by his price. Even at a keeper now, no one's going to be like, "Oh, I'm so jealous of the value."
Yeah, but at this point, it doesn't matter, right? He's on his team, right? That's who he has. So
yeah.
Who here hasn't been on that Lions running back train?
And in 3 months, if he's out of it, who's going to be knocking at his door for Jahmyr Gibbs because they need a running back to make the playoff run.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, true.
Good point. All right,
there's potential. I just don't believe in it.
Yeah, he needs some things to. He needs the momentum to shift pretty quick for his team.
Mm-hmm.
Slod Tadpoles next team coming in. They kept Josh Allen, Nick Chubb, and Miles Sanders with I think it was a last minute trade to get Sanders, wasn't it? It was Devonta Smith for Miles Sanders, which is kind of an interesting trade. Seemed pretty fair to me.
Yeah, that's about right. Running backs are harder to come by.
Big picks were Amari Cooper for 27. We'll get into that. Drake London for 31. Dallas Goedert for 8. Mike Williams for 12, and Samaje Perine for 7. Hillers, what'd you think of?
Some of these guys now traded. Now, I mean, I'm a little bit poisoned on this because I don't like the guys that he clearly likes, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. I could be wrong. It's happened before. I thought it was actually a pretty solid draft. I don't necessarily agree with all the values quite, but with so few keepers and so far to go, Slod the Rock Johnson did his best and went out and tried to get what players remain, mostly wide receivers. He's gonna have to hope that Miles Sanders continues to at least do what he did last season, if not drastically improve, if he wants to be a division winner. Which I think you in his division, you're gonna have to be the division winner. I don't expect any wild cards out of that division. So he's got a few years to go before this team works. I would have liked to seen a couple more risks, a couple more high upside guys gone after. But again, that's just player evaluation, and it's totally subjective.
Interesting.
Nick?
I think that this is Larf's second year in the draft. This is his second auction.
Mm-hmm.
I think and his second year in the auction, his first year doing it remote too. I think that this is just still getting the jitters out of understanding the values of things and understanding how the draft works. Like, we decided that he automatically disqualified for best draft because he drafted 2 defenses. Number one problem.
One of them being the Chiefs' defense.
Yeah, and like in general, just like the players themselves. And again, and I think that my worst pick of the draft is Amari Cooper for 27, when you could have kept him for 15.
I think 14. Yeah.
Yeah, like
especially with only 3 keepers. Like, who did you?
He didn't pick anyone else instead. He just dropped it.
Yeah, and then he just like, oh hey, I'm going to spend an extra $10 and and again, like, you just have to learn growing pains.
You got to know what people like that go for, right?
Getting JSN for 20 was like kind of a savvy move on his part. In terms of just
he traded for him.
Yeah, he traded for him.
No, he bought. I thought he just on his roster.
Oh no, you're right. He traded him to Andy, didn't he?
Yeah, he drafted JSN for $20, and it was and that was a good. That was probably one of the best picks that he made, just because he was able to get him for a little bit lower than market, but not by much. I think that was just one of his best picks.
Now gone.
Yeah.
and Drake London, I feel like is an overmarket. I feel like he just heard wide receivers going for 30 and it'd be like, oh, they all must be worth $30. But
this is my sleeper team for the year. I like this team a lot. Yeah. Don't forget Josh Allen sitting up there at the top of this roster.
True.
And Chubb is good.
Nick Chubb, with Kareem Hunt gone, he's got that backfield all to himself. Who knows how many passes he's going to catch this year? Fantastic. Just traded for Alexander Madison, another RB1. Also has Miles Sanders, who's going to get all the work in Carolina. He's strengthened his wide receiving core by picking up Hollywood Brown. I know not everybody likes him, but he's it in Arizona. And if Kyler Murray ends up coming back in like week 4 or 5 when he comes back, I mean, Marquise Brown was a top 6 or like the number 6 receiver in fantasy when last year before Hopkins came back and Kyler was healthy. So could be a stud. But Amari Cooper, Drake London, I mean Mike White, like there's some talent on this team. And Dallas Goedert, I think, is a top 5 tight end as well. So
okay. You love to see it. A slot truth.
Yeah, I like this team a lot. And I think it could have been better because he did just basically light $13 on fire by not keeping Amari Cooper, which is never good because you could have picked up a quality player for that. But I think this team's gonna make a run.
All right.
Not gonna happen. Chiefs, our defending champion, came in keeping 3 players: Derrick Henry, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Smith. No, yeah.
Devonta.
Because he traded for him.
Devonta Smith. He traded for Devonta Smith. Yeah. Sorry, I'm just making sure my page is updated here. His big picks were Najee Harris, 30, George Kittle at 19, Tyler Lockett for 24, Zeke for 4, and Tua for 5. Nick, what'd you think of the Champs team?
Okay, I'm going to swallow my pride here for a second and just say that what's really funny is looking at his team is that this is very much like a Nick team. Like, there's a lot of the players on this team are the kind of players that I was targeting and eyeing. And he got them for about the price that I was expecting to pay for them. So I actually like his draft a lot, and I thought that he did well in the draft, and I like this team.
Okay. Hillers?
It's fine, I guess. This is another thing. It's like, do I just hate the players that he picked? And yes, I do. And I think if you're looking at how they're doing last season and preseason and what's been going on, if you get it, you're saying this team has a lot going on in the wide receiver space, and its running backs are a shambles. And if you go and get a guy like Najee, and everybody's saying Jaylen Warren might, be replacing him pretty soon, Warren wasn't that expensive. You could have gone and got him. I don't know if you need to keep investing in your 4th wide receiver instead of doing that. And I'm such a running back guy. It's tough for me to look at a team that's like this, where it's like the wide receivers are strong, but then the running backs are like, if even one of them gets hurt, he's down to backups immediately. So I don't say I can't say I love the team, but it's a capable mid-range team. He's got enough going on outside the running backs to keep him in the mix for sure. So I'm sure he'll be around. But I think he could have prepped a little bit better, particularly in that one tough to get roster space of running backs. Maybe somebody gets hurt and he can go on the waiver wire and spend like all his waiver wire cash. But I feel like he didn't prep for that as well as he might have.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on they're good players, but they're just kind of not for me. Like, even Derrick Henry, I'm not like he's amazing. Like, we keep writing him off, and he keeps just putting up
15, and he keeps doing good.
1,500 rushing yards every year, like it's nothing. He's incredible. So to discount a running back core with that is, it's tough. But that said, this is one of the more shallow teams in the league, like you said, Hillers. I mean, there is no. There's one team that's way more shallow than this, and we'll get to that person in a little bit. I think we all know who it's going to be, but this team is right. Might be the second most shallow. So you're not a Najee believer. I don't love Najee, but I don't think he's going anywhere. I think they're going to keep. Yeah. And he was a guy who was $55, $60 in auctions last year. Had a bad year last year, but they're breaking in Kenny Pickett. The offense wasn't great, but a lot of people are, the talk is that they're going to be a little better on offense this year, and if they are, there's going to be more touchdowns. And also Najee was a little hurt last year. He had a foot injury last year that was slowing him down. So
I could be wrong.
I think Jaylen Warren will be there. I don't think, I think he's definitely going to be a factor, but I think, as an RB2, I think Najee's fine. He does have to keep getting value out of him though. But yeah, if the injuries don't happen, I think this team could be, which they didn't last year, and that's why he took home the championship.
It's a major consideration to have no injuries where you need to have no injuries. You know what injuries do to a team? It's devastating.
Yeah, it makes this game exhausting, even more exhausting.
Depth is important.
Hitman, next team. Keepers are Jalen Hurts, Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, Chris Olave, and Raheem Mostert. Picks were Joe Mixon for 40, DeAndre Hopkins for 31, and Dalton Kincaid for 4.
Why did you even put that on there?
I don't know, because that was the other highest. I feel like I couldn't just put 2. I guess 2 would have been a better bit, though.
No one even knows who Dalton Kincaid is.
I like that pick.
Yeah. So, Nick, what'd you think of the draft?
I mean, it's The rich get richer. I mean, you had a good draft. You already had a good team, and this is the team that you had like I had last year. Like I just needed to address one piece, like one spot, and I went in and spent all my money addressing it. And you did the same thing here with getting Joe Mixon and DeAndre Hopkins. Like you're fine. I honestly, this is just a situation where you're a good team. You've been a top team for a while. Cool, good job. You didn't screw it up.
This is one of the where the starters are so good. Just fill in the blanks. Just go in and fill in the blanks.
But I'm sorry, Hillers.
No, continue.
What was did you get the players that it's just to kind of let you talk about your team a little bit. What did you get the players that you wanted? Like, did you get the players that you wanted? Was there any player that you were targeting that you missed out on that you feel like you should have gone after? Or is there any player that you were like, ooh, I didn't really want that guy?
No. Yes.
Cool.
Bunch of questions right there. Didn't plan on getting Joe Mixon for 40. Didn't love getting him for 40.
No one ever wants him. That's where he goes.
I'm kind of fine with it.
That's a good price. That's what he goes for.
I probably would have rather have been instead of Mixon, I probably would have rather been in on like the Cam Akers, Brian Robinson combo. We could get both of them for about 40. But Joe Mixon, who else is running the ball in Cincinnati? There's nobody there, and that's a great offense. And he's my RB2.
It's a guy you can start every week.
Yeah. So
there weren't a ton of those hanging around.
Yeah. So that was really good.
You went out and got the boring, high floor players that you needed. And that's what your starters were so good. Go in. Get a bunch of boring, high floor guys that aren't that aren't the sexy picks or whatever, but are just gonna fill in the roster spots, give you the depth you need to weather the inevitable injuries that you're gonna collect over the season as you do. And then if even one of the guys that you pick up for like $1 pans out, your team gets even stronger. I mean, this is how dynasties get built over time, is that if you get 5 great keepers, you need to do so little in the draft. Just don't screw it up. And you didn't screw it up. So, grats. It was a perfectly good draft. It wasn't particularly hard, I don't think, but it doesn't need to be.
It was boring. It was a boring draft, and
it was boring.
There wasn't anything to it. It was might be worse draft because there was nothing that happened. Like there was nothing there.
No, there was something that happened. You did exactly what your team needed to do, which is get a few starters at the price that they were going without going bonkers. And it wasn't hard, but you did it. So good job.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing that kind of set me up was trading Jonathan Taylor for Tyreek Hill. That one really worked out in my favor so far. Sorry, again, there's a small part of me that feels a little guilty on that one because did not see that happening. Very small though, very small. So
well, sometimes you get one.
Yeah, Pritchard's on the trophy, so I don't feel super bad, but it's anyway.
Pritchard.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
So didn't need much. Gazebo, next team. Darius keepers were Kenneth Walker, Devontae Adams, Javonte Williams, Jalen Waddle, and Mark Andrews. Not bad. Her picks were Chris Godwin for 23, Daniel Jones for 6, Brian Robinson for 13, Cam Akers for 18, and Brandon Cooks for 6. Hillers, what'd you think of Darius' draft?
And I know I'm a long-time Gazebo sympathizer, but I think like the scores bear it out.
You're president of fan club, I think.
But she has excellent scores, and I think it's going to happen again. I gave this one, spoiler alert, this was best draft for me because I think she had a really tough road to hoe with so much money locked up in keepers. The team wasn't going to get any better and wasn't going to fill in necessary depth spots and starter spots to fill unless you could come out of there with some good value and some high upside.
Just to jump in there, she kind of did what I was trying to do, right? I said how I would like to have been on Cam Akers, Brian Robinson. Well, she did that instead of paying $40 for Joe Mixon. She spread her money out a little more, and got a little more.
Yeah. This is like how you prep for future years. This is an ideal situation of not all of these people are going to pan out, but 2 or 3 of them look like they might, and for in the $20 or below range, which is amazing. And so that's hard to come by, especially with this year being one of the years that's even more wastelandy than most, with a lot of the top talent at every position being unavailable before we started. To come out the back end with this, it's definitely the case that Brian Robinson could end up the main guy in DC this year. I'm kind of a Cam Akers believer, even though he's hurt me before. Maybe this is the year. If so, this is going to end up looking fantastic at the end of the season, even if it's not them and it's somebody else. I think the team improved itself for cheap and went for high ceilings, which is just the kind of draft I like to see. So,
Nick,
I'm just going to echo what Hillary said. I think this is the best. This was the best draft. I think that she just waited and waited and waited, and when all the money was gone, was able to get somehow or other the way that the draft just planned out. There was just no money on the table, and Brian Robinson and Cam Akers were able to go off for $32 combined, and
not even half of Bijan.
Yeah, so I mean that was just it was just savvy. It was just savvy. Waiting, knowing the market and waiting, and not for letting the draft come to her.
Yeah, the running back core is interesting. I think it's one of the more interesting running back cores because there's not anyone who pops out as like superstar, right? But there's a lot of them who could be superstars and
play the matchups.
I mean, Javonte Williams, I think, is incredible and is going to be just a beast. Maybe not this year coming off the ACL, but could be great. Brian Robinson, is the starter in Washington right now, and Antonio Gibson went for more. So Brian Robinson for $6 cheaper than his backup is pretty good. Like you said, there's Cam Akers and then Kenneth Walker also on the team. So that's 4 quality running backs, and any one of them could pop, if not more. So, I think we all had Daria for best draft, right?
Yep.
So that's a unanimous best draft. So sorry, Daria, but
that's
there's
a mighty
always
curse.
next year.
A unanimous first draft is a mighty curse.
Speaking of unanimous first drafts, the Weenyay are our next team up. Weenyay kept
Rumble champion
Saquon, Alexander Madison, DK Metcalf, and Christian Watson. His picks were Aaron Jones for 40, Justin Herbert for 19, Hollywood Brown for 13, Jahan Dotson for 14, and Tank Bigsby for 6. Hillary, what'd you think of Nick, what'd you think of Andy's draft?
He has a good running back core. Questionable wide receivers are the notes that I put down. And then looking at this, I will say that I think Herbert was one of the first quarterbacks nominated, knowing that we were switching the quarterback scoring. And it definitely turned me off to quarterbacks right away because I was like, okay, well, if quarterbacks are going to be going for $19, I am not prepared.
You're out.
And for that reason, I'm out.
I was like, yeah, and for that reason, I am out of bidding on quarterbacks this year.
At least you had a reason this year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Also,
you don't always need a reason to abandon quarterbacks.
I mean, I was like, okay, well, let's see how this plays out. But I thought his draft was fine. But like I said, that was just my first thought. I like that he got Anthony Richardson. I think that's an interesting pick for the future.
Yeah, some upside there.
Yeah, some upside there. There were a couple players I think I had on my on the sweepstakes list. Like who's going to win these players? Like obviously it was Bijan, it was Anthony Richardson, and all 4 rookie wide receivers. Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnson, and
Jackson Smith.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, and the guy that I got that I can't even remember his name on. I want to call him Peterson. Jordan Addison, yeah. And he got one, so anyone who got one of those players, I think is like I'm fascinated by the value that they went for. So
yeah, Anthony Richardson for 6. Were you guys surprised by that?
I was. I think he was nominated a little too early for me to want to spend $6, to go up to 7. But I was ready to get on. If I walked out of the draft with Anthony Richardson as my only quarterback, I was going to be fine with that, presuming that I got him for less than $5.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah.
You're so miserly with your quarterback dollars. You'd be like $5 fine, $7 never. And then to see what you spend on some of your players, and that you're just unwilling to go after quarterback points.
I will talk to my team in a minute.
You are unwilling. You're provably unwilling.
I love this draft. I think there were 3 teams that were kind of in the running for best draft. Andy, as usual, and I think the Dad Dicks, and I think Andy and Daria. I think Daria gets it, but those were the 3 I think that we all kind of looked at. Every pick on this team, like I liked. I don't think he's amazing in any position. I did my annual power rankings where I rank each position for the team, and what it turns out. And Andy finished middle of the pack to top of the pack ish, in the upper percentile for most positions, but never at the top, right? So I think this team could be good, but I think for Andy that's good because what he needs is depth and diversification because things go horrible for him all the time, and so I think he realized that. And so this is a very deep team. I think he's got a lot of options. But I don't understand the Madison trade, and that's all I'm going to say. So, Hillers?
Yeah, the team already looks different than it did from the draft, and I think what we're seeing is a willingness to come out here and be wheeling and dealing like crazy, which I love, and to deal with the situation where he's had a team that was not a contender by saying, let me go out and get rookies at keepable prices and get high upside guys at keepable prices and find out which one of these is my lottery ticket, and which is a strategy that I love for a struggling team. I don't know if it's going to be enough to get him where he needs to go this season, but I can't take the draft as anything because he's already half the trades in the league and we haven't even had week 1 yet. And I love that he's out there. I know he has guys that he likes and that he's banking on. So at least he has some direction and some confidence that he knows what he wants and goes out and gets it and defends those guys and doesn't just trade to trade. Like he has an idea. I'm not going to say it's a correct idea yet. I think the problem with dealing with high upside guys at cheap prices is you're going to have a question mark on every single one of them. So the season will tell. And I think it's impossible to know right now if this is a spectacularly good draft or like Dez had a season or 2 ago, a team of duds, a team of flops. It could go either way. I mean, Herbert's fine, but $19 is a lot to pay for a quarterback in this league. So I'm glad he got Richardson. I support his 2 quarterback strategy. I think that's a solid choice. But
yeah, especially with Anthony Richardson because it's kind of a
right.
It's a long shot, right? And it could be great.
Well, there's no part of this team where I'm like, this position is bereft, that's what you want to see.
Yep.
So,
Nick, your team's next. The longest 2.5 yards. Longest 2.5 yard.
Yes.
Oh boy.
I need to clean that up.
Yeah.
Get it in post.
Keepers were Eckler, AJ Brown, Romeo Dobbs, and Travis Kelce,
and James Conner. We haven't updated that.
Oh, you kept Conner was a keeper for you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Didn't realize that. Okay, sorry about that. So your picks were not James Conner. Your picks were Alvin Kamara for 35, AJ Dillon for 12, Jordan Addison for 14, Aaron Rodgers for 2 at quarterback. Hillers, what do you think of Nick's team?
The team, like yours, top tier team last year. 5 very strong keepers. You didn't have much to do. I like the picks. I think you got good value. I think there's a good chance that AJ Dillon is the main guy in or close enough to it in Wisconsin this year. I don't know about Kamara for 35, but honestly, you're just filling in gaps at this point. You're not expecting to start him week 1. You don't need to. You got at least 3 more capable guys ready to go, and then a couple people sitting there waiting later on in the season to maybe move into those positions. And similar with the wide receivers, you started off strong enough that you just go and get a few people to fill it in and maybe do high ceilings, and you did. The wide receivers, I will say, look a little bit more brittle to me. I think there's a lot riding on A.J. Brown right now, and the hopes of guys like Addison and Dobbs, and maybe to a lesser extent Thomas and Peoples-Jones to move up. But I obviously we're nitpicking. This is one of the strongest teams in the league. If Kelce can stay productive and healthy, you're going to be in the mix for sure. So fine.
Who are you starting at receiver, Nick?
AJ, Michael Thomas, and probably Donovan Peoples-Jones.
Yeah, you might have some tough choices this year. with your stable.
So let me kind of along those lines. Let me ask you something. And I'm trying to understand this one, and this is just a preference. You know, I tend to go more towards like the more known quantities, I guess. So this is kind of a Merrill question. But why choose to keep Romeo Doubs for 4 instead of Tyler Lockett for 8?
I don't know. Honestly, that's the kind of thing that I don't know. I think
he likes Dobbs. He's a Dobbs backer.
I like Dobbs for 4. I thought that I don't know. In hindsight, I probably should have done that. In hindsight, I probably should have kept Hopkins for 18, wherever that cost would have been. I think that just that whole Seattle offense just scared me a little, and I didn't know what to expect. And not yet. $8 for Lockett makes way more sense. Totally get it. So I can't really defend that. Like I said,
that's an
I got sucked in by the gun show and booze.
It's okay. Yeah, we all make mistakes. It's fine.
Yeah, because I think it was just the mismanagement of the keepers and the trade is what gets me. I think your draft was fine. It's just like what happened right before the draft is what kind of leading you into it is what just kind of I'm just not a fan of, I guess. But
I think part of it too was that when I was doing the math in my head, I was assigning the $3 to AJ Brown, so it was $40 and Lockett was $10. I was like, oh, that seems like so much money for Tyler Lockett. I'll throw him back and see if I can get him for cheaper. Romeo Doubs is only going to cost me $4 if I assign him. So it was just complete mismanagement on my part.
And I guess the other thing is keeping Connor at 28. Your other option was to keep
15. The prices were reversed for Eckler and Connor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Eckler and Connor.
I did know on the sheet on the draft board they were reversed. So you wrote it down right.
So that's not as bad. But still asking you could have had
incredible value.
Your choice was but your choice was Khalil Herbert for what 4 versus James Conner for 15. And
I would have taken Connor too.
And packed in with that though is you traded Khalil. You could have kept Lockett as well for 8. You could have had Khalil Herbert and Tyler Lockett, and you ended up with Romeo Doubs and James Conner.
Right. The man said he made a mistake.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just all right.
Let's not beat the horse.
We don't need to do it. I'm sorry. Take it. And again, they're probably going to be great, and I'm going to look like an idiot. So
he's just looking for some reason that your team might not be.
No, it's not really long. I don't think that I think that between that trade and I don't like. I feel like I didn't have enough money, and I feel like I had too many holes. I feel like I should have taken maybe a page out of Dari's book and just not tried to rush the draft and let something come to me. Yeah,
it's hard to do when those values are coming out, though.
It is, but it was it's I wanted Kamara. Kamara was the guy that I wanted to leave the draft with, and I was like, we could spend about $30 for him. Because that was about the only I could get one $30 player was kind of my budget for this.
And you picked a guy.
And I picked the guy. Yeah. That's why I was like,
that's a fine pick. I think that's a good pick. Yeah.
And the thing is, after I did that, it's okay. Well, now I was very quickly in that hole with everyone else, where it's okay, well,
how long's he suspended for?
Just 3 games.
Oh, okay.
So it was I wanted Kamara. I got him for 35, and then I wanted one of the 3 receivers. I didn't want Zay Flowers, but I wanted Addison, Jackson Smith, or Quentin Johnson. And Addison came up, and I was like, okay, 14. That's the guy that I went on. The other guy I went on.
Yeah. Nervous about Kelce being hurt?
That's a 1-week thing at most. Trust me, I've been watching it. Having to play him this week, it's not going to be a multi-week situation for him.
I'm eyebrow raised. Eyebrow raised just because I'm okay, it's Travis Kelce. He's been so resilient throughout his entire career. If he was playing on Sunday, would he be out, or is it just because it's on Thursday? Are the Chiefs just sort of playing around he has a bone bruise? I don't know what a bone bruise means at 30. It seems like it's not that big of a deal, but the questions I don't know.
It's just some swelling.
Maybe like if 3 weeks.
If it was Sunday, he'd definitely be playing. It's just the fact that it was like 2 days out. It's not a long-term issue. Trust me, I hope he's out on week 1. But
it's tomorrow night. I think
he'll be out tomorrow.
He's definitely out. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad that I have at least. I don't have to run to the Ravers. Like I kind of like Higbee, especially if Kupp is out. Like,
yeah, that's a great backup tight end.
You're not going to find anything better than Higbee on the Ravers.
Yeah, it's like okay, so Higbee is competing against Van Jefferson for targets in week 1. Like I'm okay with that,
especially. Yeah, that's
yeah.
good.
So I'm kind of okay
it's not Kelsey,
with that.
but it's about as good as you're going to find
from a backup tight end, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right,
so,
touchdown Jesus. Let's get to the fun part. Touchdown Jesus came in keeping 3 Chiefs: Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, Sky Moore, also Jonathan Taylor and Deebo Samuel. His picks were Bijan Robinson for 80 and Mike Evans for 14.
And that's it.
And that's the list. There's more, but we'll get to that. Nick, what are your thoughts on old Pritchard's team?
He got caught price enforcing on Evans, so I think that's why he got him for 14. Because I feel like if you have $14 to spend, why would you spend it on Mike Evans?
And
I don't hate it. I think it's fine.
I mean, it's not
I like the old guys though.
Yeah, on any other team, that's not a huge eyebrow raiser. Like it's $14.
It's 14. It's Mike Evans for $14 isn't a problem, but it's when it's like okay,
it's his only money though. that's
right.
That's the part.
Money.
That's the part that
spending your last dollar on Mike Evans is
it's spending all your last dollars. He had almost half a roster of $1 last draft pickups. $14 is all he had left, and he's like, "Boom, Evans championship."
That's why I think that's also like one of the that's the like it's funny it's like you had to do something like that's fine. Like who would you really gotten for $14? Like if you look back at everyone else, like. Quentin Johnson is someone you could have been competing against. Like, who are you really going to know that you're going to go for $14?
Hollywood.
So he kind of got locked into. Like, I think he just hadn't spoken in a while, and he was like, "Mike Evans, $14." And was like, "Okay, well, fuck." Now
he might have just got tired of sitting there. That's totally
he
possible.
just wanted to say something.
He just wanted to be involved.
I mean, but for someone who's just like pick up like $1 players, I mean, he did a pretty good job of. Picking up he got Jordan Love as his backup quarterback for $1. He got his handcuff to Bijan. His $80 handcuff for $1.
I think he dropped Jordan Love, didn't he?
Maybe.
I'm not seeing him.
There's not a lot of receivers that were notable.
He's got Mahomes. He doesn't need Jordan Love.
Going at the $14 price tag. I'll say that. Receivers were kind of expensive this year.
Look. He spent $80 on one player. All right.
Why are we talking about Mike Evans?
He had no money. He spent $80 on a rookie who's never taken an NFL snap before.
Foolish.
Unbelievable. Here's the crazy thing. Here's the crazy thing. Someone else bid $79.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's more ridiculous, the $80 or the $79 that Watson could add?
Like we knew Pritchard's crazy, right? We know that. But I mean, it's crazy. Like this is what happens. I mean, look at so shallowest team, we mentioned this earlier, this is the shallowest team in the league, and that's what happens when you spend 45% of your budget on one player. This is what happens.
I mean, also anytime you're setting a new record, you fucked up. I mean, I don't think that's that's perfectly. Look, the guy was clearly like the highest, like the most sought after target in this year's draft. And he seems to be an excellent player in about the best situation that a running back can be in. Having said that, if he ends up being the best running back in the world, he's not quite at value.
No,
because it costs $80. You know what I mean? If he ends up being the new LaDainian Tomlinson, he's still basically unkeepable next season, and you've only just got him close to market. Not quite there. Because of how ludicrously overexpensive he is. He could have gotten most of a team for this, and he goes, "Nope, I'm not doing stars and scrubs. I'm doing star and scrubs."
Stars.
And when his leg falls off or something, this team is boned.
Yeah, along those lines, this is the worst bench I've ever seen in fantasy football. And I'm not exaggerating. I mean, it's horrible. I mean, there is. Like beyond like the top 5-6 players on this team, it is.
Yeah,
I mean, it's grim. The dregs. It's terrible.
Shit's grim. We were in trade talks about a guy I was like passingly interested in on his team, and he's like, "You want Zamir White?" I was like, "Not even as a handcuff. He's so bad. He's so terrible that even if he was to start, it wouldn't be worth my interest." I mean, maybe Tyler Alligator. He absolutely needs multiple ones of his $1 players to be surprisingly good.
I mean, he doesn't
keep up.
No, he doesn't.
Kind of does, I think.
No, he doesn't.
Who were his running backs?
Tyler Alligator,
Isaiah Pacheco, Bijan.
Okay.
End of list. I mean,
all right. Who were his starting receivers?
Sky Moore, Debo, and Mike Evans.
Yeah. Okay.
With Dalton Schultz and by Patrick Mahomes. I mean, if no one gets hurt, no one gets hurt.
So when you say it out loud, it doesn't sound bad, right?
And then
the problem is you have to look at the other teams in the league, and that's where it doesn't stack up.
Even if all those guys start all season and do roughly what they're expected to do, that seems like a middling record to me, like a 50-50 record, which is not going to be enough to make the playoffs.
Isn't it crazy that and then in 4 weeks, 5 weeks ish, whatever it is, you can get Jonathan Taylor back potentially.
Oh, I'm trading for Bijan.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I mean, this is why I love an auction league, right? Like, you could look at a team that has Patrick Mahomes, Isaiah Pacheco, like the starting lineup that we just said, and think like, man, that sounds like a really good team. Like, yeah, that's kind of the worst lineup in our league. Somehow that's one of the weaker lineups.
People do kind of know what they're doing at this point.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to maneuver when you don't spend $80 on one player.
All right. Let's move on. Get this over with.
It's so crippling.
Cyborg Tony Romo is our next team. Roscoe came in keeping Breece Hall, Khalil Herbert. Sorry, the other Herbert. His brother, I think. Justin Jefferson and Garrett Wilson. His big picks were J.K. Dobbins at 37, Deontay Johnson at 30, Trevor Lawrence at 7 is his quarterback, Zach Charbonnet at 12, Jaylen Warren at 8, and Elijah Moore at 8. I'll go ahead here. I think the days of the murderer's row of running backs that Roscoe would just destroy us with, I think, are over. I think this team is good at running back, but not. It's the weak part of the team. I mean, other than potentially, maybe not quarterback, but. So, that's clearly his weak spot. I think it's a good team. I think it's a good draft. Obviously, I mean, Roscoe knows what he's doing. He had good keepers. Garrett Wilson for $6, not bad. But I think his wide receiver core is maybe the best in the league. It's up there, but I think running back could be an issue for him. Nick, what do you think?
I'll echo what you said. I actually didn't really like his draft, to be honest. I think he chased some dollars. He just picked up the players that were necessarily on my to get list, right? I think that J.K. Dobbins for 37 is a lot for J.K. Dobbins. I think that J.K. Dobbins himself is saying man, if they're going to pay $37 for me in fantasy, Baltimore should be paying me more money because look at this, my fantasy value is through the roof. But he just hasn't done anything on the field.
I'm not sure anyone's told him he went for $37 in our draft.
I'll tell him. Let me DM him real quick.
Okay.
And then Deontay Johnson.
Players love that stuff.
I think Deontay Johnson was one of the sleepers, not the sleepers, but the preseason darlings going into the draft, and he won that big stake for $30. But even $30 for that seems like a lot. I don't know.
It's about what that caliber receiver is going for, I think, though. It's a little high. I agree, a little high. But it's if you're going to spend 26, spend 30, right? Hillers, what do you think here?
He's clearly decided, let me take some shots on some high upside cheap guys. Your Charbonnets, your Warrens, what have you. And I think the chances of at least one of those panning out are reasonably strong. And he doesn't need a ton to be competitive. So I think this is going to be a strong competitive team, largely on the back of the keepers. And as you said, that unreasonably scary starting lineup for wide receivers. When you talk starting lineup, you definitely don't want to see Wilson and Jefferson staring you in the face there. That's terrifying. I mean, that could easily be 60 points against you before the game even starts. And so he definitely had a leg up. He was definitely moneyed and inherited into being a very competitive team. So he didn't need to do much with his draft. Is it thrilling? No. But if a couple of those guys pan out, he's just fine. And Dobbins at 37, whatever. He'll start him when he needs to in the flex. And he didn't need much. He didn't blow me away. He didn't get anything particularly shockingly good. But if some of those guys where he's taking flyers on, okay. If none of them go wrong, pretty risky. He's in a really tough division. A really tough division. So he's going to have to bring a game like the whole season. So that's the part that has me thinking this is a more risky team than I would love to have.
At the moment, this running back core is one of the worst in the league, though. I mean, it's not good. So, it'd probably turn to gold because it's Roscoe.
Because it's Roscoe. Or he'll trade. He's clearly has the silver tongue in the trade market.
Yeah,
so.
For sure.
Just take off.
He already got one.
Those arms.
He already got one.
Just flex those arms.
Yeah, he's
that's next thing gonna be trading Eckler to him.
Just don't look directly at the guns.
Yeah,
just don't look directly at his arms.
He's already singing his siren song, looking for the young debutantes of the league to just hand over their goods.
He's got the oil out. He's massaging them.
Without ever putting Jefferson or Wilson on the table. He'll get your players.
Yeah. Hillers is our last team here. Hillers came in keeping Lamar Jackson, Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, Brandon Ayuk, and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Hillers, your big picks were Rachaad White at 36, Antonio Gibson at 19, Christian Kirk at 17, George Pickens at 10, and Kenny Pickett at 6. Got that Pickens-Pickett combo.
Gotta have it.
Nick, what'd you think of Hillers' draft?
Meh. I don't know. Like,
fair. Fair.
Hey, I'll take a meh.
Yeah, I just didn't. It was just meh.
Okay.
Good
Anything
talk.
else? Or?
Glad we discussed it.
I know. I'm sorry. Like, I think I'm all talked out. No. I liked your keepers coming into the league. So like you had some solid keepers. So again, the question is, are you going to address like what was the need that you needed? Like you had the quarterback, your running backs were fine. You needed a flex. You needed a flex on the tight end. You got your Hillers boys, right? You got your Christian Kirk and you got your David Njoku. Like the most Hillers people ever. You got them because those are your boys, and that's a very Hillers draft. You got your what was it? $8 between you spent $8 between your kicker and your defense. Yeah, once again, that's works for you.
$6.
$8.
It says 3 for on my on.
It says 3 for Harrison. Oh well, Buffalo Bills were 5.
Oh, that's $8. Sorry, I was seeing 3 twice.
Okay.
No
then
regrets. No regrets.
Yeah. You invested a lot in running back, and I think what you came in with really good running backs. Josh Jacobs, Ramondre Stevenson, really good running backs. Among the best coming in, and then you invested more in running backs. You went 2 more with Rachaad White, was your most expensive player you bought, and then Antonio Gibson, your RB4, you spent $19 on. And then looking at your wide receiver core, I mean, Amon-Ra's great, especially in a PPR league. But beyond that, there's not much. And I wish you would have kind of shifted a little more of that money to wide receiver. If I'm looking at any of it. But that's what we do here, I guess, is pick apart things that people do. So that's kind of where I'm at. I know this team is not gonna be what the way this team looks right now is not gonna be the way it looks in 6 weeks. I understand that. And the nice thing about running backs is they're easy to trade, and so that's I think why you like getting a lot of them too, because it's gold currency. Keepers were good. I think your receiving core, you're going to need your running backs to carry your receivers, and they could happen. Amon-Ra's great, and not an Ayuk guy, but some combination of Pickens, Kirk, and Ayuk are going to have to. Carry the rest of that receiving core.
Yeah, and I'll play the matchups on them. I'm not a guy that believes in paying like tons of money for anything except for top tier wide receivers, and there wasn't top tier wide receivers on the main available. I do agree with you, though. If I had to do it over again, I would have taken some of that Gibson money and made it maybe like Keenan Allen money instead, and I would have felt better about this team. I didn't love my draft.
I wrote down like John Dotson, Jordan Addison, Mike Evans, like somebody like that. Even,
I definitely, looking at it in hindsight, I wish I had done that instead of. But as you say, I'll work with what I got. It's not a disaster. I do believe in Ayuk, and it's still 3 guys that had over 225 points last season, and then I took some flyers on guys like Pickens and Collins, and that have hype, and hope that one of them pans out. If they don't, that's fine, because I'm going to be all over the waivers. I'm going to be all over the trade market. People have already been talking to me about, or I've been talking to them, if we're being honest. I've been sending out messages about like
people are talking.
People are talking when I talk to them first. They talk back about trying to see what I can do to improve the wide receiver core a little bit, and we'll get there. As it is right now, I think I've got the starters to at least compete in what is going to be a nightmare division again, and we'll see how it pans out.
Okay.
Not my favorite team, not my favorite draft, but we'll get there.
All right, prediction time, boys.
Oh, good. This is. Let's set ourselves up to be humiliated at the end of the season, as we always do.
Nick, you wanna start us off?
Sure. For a division, I have Hitmen, the Gazebo, and the Ducks.
Okay.
And for wildcard, let's just do a division and wildcard. And for wildcards, I have CTR and Hillers.
Okay. My division, I've got Hitmen.
3 teams out of 1 division. I'll call out there.
I've got Hitmen, Slod, and Nick winning divisions, and my wild cards are actually Nick. Who else is in your division? I'm sorry. I was gonna adjust that. I'm sorry. Who else can I pick besides you?
Daria.
Yeah. I've got Gazebo already. Oh yeah. So
Daria
would
CTR. CTR, and I want to say Slod.
Wow, I got 3 from your division in there. Then I'd put Gazebo in at CTR's in my division, by the way. I'd put Gazebo as a division winner and you as a wild card, Nick.
Okay.
I'll just swap that. Hillers.
Well, Hitmen. So you're the only consensus division winner among the podcast. I have Nick winning our division, and then coming in with Dad Dicks as the winner of the final division. So Minority Report there. And then for wild card, I have myself and Gazebo.
Want to do champions?
Oh boy. I mean, what's the point? Everybody knows when we get to the playoffs, it's all injury and
I picked
whatever.
Nick last year. I was close.
You were close.
2.5 yards away.
You were. You were 2.5 yards away. That's the closest you can get without winning.
Mm-hmm. Well.
Not really.
Pretty close, though. Nick, you gotta... I'll go first if you want.
No,
sure.
I think Daria. I think Daria is the best team.
You're picking Daria to win it?
Yeah.
All right. Hillers?
I think I'll join him in that, actually. I think she has the kind of team that if she could just make it to the playoffs instead of getting screwed in the regular season, it'd be very scary for people. So
She definitely has a good team. I'm picking the Hitmen to win it. Over Slod.
Year 20.
Over I don't know that I've ever picked myself 20. To win it before, but...
especially not over Slod.
This is the year. Yeah. I love my team, so very strong.
Oh, by the way, did you guys see I named myself 1/5 of Bijan because there's 16 players on the team?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a math joke. It's a math joke. That's what it is.
People love math jokes. All right. Yeah. As much as they love hour-and-a-half podcasts. That said, let's shut it down. We'll be back in who knows when. Couple weeks, whatever. We'll try to do some bits.
Bits and skits.
Yeah, bits and skits. If nobody has anything else, this is Merrill signing off for Nick and Hillers. Talk to you guys later.
And this is Nick signing off for Merrill.